time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand with your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Welcome to a very, very special episode of Brandy. It is
special. It is.
This is the Grand Centennial.
the Grand Centennial episode. Our 100th episode of Brandy. I don't, when we started this, I didn't think we'd be still doing this, to be honest with you. We start off, I say this only because, and I'll be frank. Hey, let's start recording some of these conversations we have and make a little podcast. Okay, that sounds like a fun idea. And that's why it was never like, hey, we want to commercialize something. We want to make income from, we just wanted to start chatting and sharing with people. And it was like, okay, we wrapped up a full year doing it, and we at 50 episodes. You're like, wow, this is crazy, and it continues to grow, and more people listen. And so to sit there and go 100 episodes in, I never would have thought when we started we'd be like, oh yeah, we definitely could be putting out 100 episodes on brand.
Yeah, it is pretty.
And granted, it's we rehash a lot of old concepts, but that's because the core concepts of brand are clear and simple. But many people don't understand them, aren't aware of them, or tend to think of them in only one aspect, and there's different ways of approaching it.
To Scott's point, it's like a lot of our episodes, we do hit upon the same principles. But if you know us, we're very principled thinkers, and we're very into principles and just things kind of having those pillars in life, in business, and in brand. And yes, that does simplify things, and it makes things simple, but it's not easy. And I think that's where sometimes in business, in marketing, you get these, 5 easy hacks to market, or whatever it could be, where it's like, or rebrand, these easy rebrands of just changing the type or going with this trend.
We see the same way with getting rich. It's like people go, oh, hey, want to double your income. This. And
passive income.
Easy. Yeah, that it's easy, but they don't show all the huge layers of work.
It's compounding. And that's what I think it's just like, if you go through all of our episodes, we kind of do hit upon these things, and a lot of it is just like things that we see in the real world that Scott and I have observed, that we've been able to see and take note of, and just these conversations that we have together, because we're both kind of looking at the world through this lens of brand and going, oh, that's interesting. This brand, whatever, like BMW just rebranded, a slight rebrand to their logo where they reduced some strokes in it and reduced some chrome and all that, and they made some little touches that the average person probably won't notice, but they did these little refinements. And just like we see these things where it's a multi-billion-dollar company doing that, or the shop around the corner where we're just kind of observing, and sharing that with you all has been fun.
To me, the simplest way to think like someone that's thinking in terms of branding is just flip on your consumer. You guys, everybody listening, you guys are all shoppers. We're all consumers. Half the stuff that I'll come in, like it's on a Monday morning or something, we'll be talking. It's like, hey, how was your weekend? Blah, blah, blah. And Ryan and I are catching up over coffee or something. And I'll bring up not only, movies or shows we watched or whatever over the weekend, but like, oh, dude, I was in the store and I noticed this. Have you seen this? Or we'll take pictures and we'll text each other going like something new. And it's a lot of times it's just like, I'm thinking about brand as a consumer. And so therefore it's not just, we check all the news feeds on brand news and going, oh, someone's done this is done. Yeah. A lot of it is just, again, it's us being consumers. And that's, if you start looking really at your experience as a consumer, as how you shop, how you think as a shopper, and what works for you. But then, it's like that you'll start understanding some of a lot of the principles of brand that we talk about.
And similar, it's like a famous Warren Buffett quote where he said, being an investor made me a better business owner, and being a business owner made me a better investor. Because when you start having these dualities in life where you're not only seeing brand, or you're investing, or you're doing this in your personal life or in business, then you start seeing on the other side of the coin how these things apply, and they kind of start working together in tandem. So going over our top played episodes out of the 100, the top 3 were, let's see if you remember these. The rebrand, which was the one where the longer title is rebrand, and that was Jaguar, Nicolas Cage, and then thermodynamics or something like that. And we talked about how those things relate, and how Nicolas Cage has had this kind of rebranding rebirth, especially with some of his more recent films, and the Jaguar flop.
Oh my gosh.
The second place winner was to rebrand or not to rebrand. And that was an earlier episode where we talked about timing, or should you rebrand or should you not, out of boredom or following trends or whatever it is. And then a third one that everyone really liked a lot was Theater of
the Theater Brand. That one we've got a lot of great feedback from too. And that's one of those ones that we always like if we do try to pitch the podcast or something, we always like to point to people to that one, because we feel like it's first of all, it's a good one, but Reilly and I are both like lovers of theater, so that helps.
I feel like it's it's funny because it's like a framing, an easy digestible framing of a reframing of how to look at brand.
Yeah.
Because it's like how Walt talks about employees. They're not employees, they're cast members. And it's a slight change of verbiage. It's a slight change of mindset of how you approach branding and how you approach like the brand experience and everything. So that one's really fun and good. And we're going to this episode is going to be focused on, throughout these 100 episodes, just observations, patterns, or little takeaways that Scott and I have kind of landed on.
Like, what are some of these pillars that we are talking about? And I think it spawned too from, we kind of threw it out there. Hey, 100th episode coming up. This is on social media. 100th episode coming up. If you have a question, we'll address it on the next episode. And someone came back to us and just said, what is the difference between business and branding? And it may seem like a simple concept, and there may be a simple answer for that, but a lot of times they're also very similar. And so I think that's kind of what birthed this kind of like some kind of key points to help kind of answer that question. There's differences and there's also similarities.
Right. And kind of the big difference, it's kind of become a mantra or an adage that we say a lot, is that business is transactional and brand is relational. And that doesn't mean that there's not relationship in a transaction, or there's not transactions in a relationship. That is completely void of the point of, it's not this clear divided line that, okay, business over here and brand over here. Because if you hear us, the other points we make, it's about these two kind of entities working together. When a brand and a business are woven together and they're interlaced, where the brand is not only external but also internal with the staff or the founder or the marketing department, it's like you have something that actually works, where then the brand and the business, the corporation, is firing on all cylinders.
Right. I think there's two, like the easiest way to distinguish between the two, I think, if we're going to be talking about some similarities, but one distinction, because it's like transactional and relational. What exactly does that mean? And I think the other key core of brand is that it's perception. And business, when I think of business, I think of factual. It is numbers. It is profit. It is cost of sales. It's all the things, the framework. It's very literal. It's logistical. It's you have reporting on that. You see performance. It's all very factual, and that's the business component side. And branding is more. It's how is it relational? It's perception. Every relationship you have as a person is the value, or the where you frame, let's say, the relationship between another person, a friend. They might have a different perception of your friendship than you do. Yeah. And I think when we say transactional, to me, I see it as perception versus factual.
Yeah, like literal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because it is like business. A business needs to be profitable. A business needs to have certain things in place for it to function, for it to operate and actually get things done and create the value that it's going to deliver to the market. And then the brand is kind of that, it's that vessel that helps it deploy, that helps it get the word out and helps it actually target and figure out what's even better for that. Because like in a relationship, it's like you're going to click with certain people. Other people, they're not going to get your humor. They might get annoyed by you. They might just not like you. And so it is subjective, and it is, but that's kind of like where the power comes from, where just as subjective as it may be, it's like that's also the upside of how great it can go. If you really find that lane that you're in and who you should be with, it just like explodes from there, and then the business benefits from that.
Yeah. Bottom line for brand is clarity. Is if brand is essentially the reflection, the perception of your business, that your brand needs to be clear. It has to have clarity.
It's interesting to me, because even when I consult or when I'm doing things with a business where I'm looking at, going, okay, what's your services? How are you even making money? Where's the money coming from? where's the profitability, what's your bread and butter, and understanding the dynamics of the business, then you can see where then there may be a gap between how the business is working internally and how the market's seeing it versus what it aspires to be, or even how the market may be misinterpreting it. And that's a huge problem, because if you do have clarity, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, and then you're able to lean into those things and really benefit from that, because most likely your audience is wanting to appreciate you for your strengths, for what the value you're bringing to the market. Then you're able actually to fully capture that. But you have to have that clarity first of going, okay, who are we and what are we actually good at? It's like when you're getting ready to start your career or anything. It's like, what am I actually interested in, and what am I good at? What are my natural kind of instincts or my natural talents? And then how does that benefit the business and help it actually bring value to the market?
Yeah. I think too, when we talked recently about like Lego, embracing this little new tech component that we feel like goes against their brand. We was like, kind of like, this goes against the very core of what it's all about with Legos. I think a lot of times, if brands shouldn't be striving so hard to be relevant.
Yeah.
Right. And because I feel like a lot of brands do, they need to, if anything, focus on building trust.
Which is so funny, because you do think about trust, and even as humans, like working in society, when society rewards that, like if you contribute to your local community, or you're involved, or you work well somewhere, or you're contributing to something bigger than yourself, or even just being like a great member of your family, that in society, that's rewarded, because that's building trust, that's building overall just like dependency and being able to do that. And in society, we like that, right? So it's like the same thing with a brand. Is like, if you're being consistent and you're there for your customer base and you're bringing value to them, that is rewarded and compounded over time. Yes, it's not going to be this explosion overnight, but over time it compounds, and that trust just keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And again, brands that we've talked about before, it's like Costco, In-N-Out. These brands have been slow growth over the years, but they've just compounded because they've kept their customer as their center focus, and that just brings them rewards in the long run, because that trust is there, and it just keeps getting like thicker and thicker and thicker, where now that becomes their competitive advantage. No one else can really get in there and steal the trust. It's on the business to then shoot themselves in the foot and lose that. And another Warren Buffett quote is, it takes 20 years to build a reputation, it takes 5 minutes to lose it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is what's so hard about it too, is that you could spend all this time building this trust and this reputation, this perception, right, your brand, and you do one misfire, one like slip up, and you can cause a lot of damage to that. So it's not something to just kind of like experiment with. And that's where like strategy comes into play, is like, okay, what are we, right? And that's going to be your North Star. Because it's the same thing, going back to In-N-Out, is like, In-N-Out hasn't expanded their menu. They didn't go into franchising. They didn't start taking on debt. They didn't do all these things because they knew what their strategy was and what was working. It was a constant dripping hollows of stone, and In-N-Out just kept going after the same exact thing.
And they had plenty of opportunity to forego some of that strategy to make a better profit margin, lower their unit costs of different things, everything from buns to whatever. And they didn't. They continued to say no, because it went against the core of their brand, of who they were. Yeah,
and we always talk about being different and being distinct, and this kind of leads into it, where consistency doesn't create differentiation, but conviction does. And having that conviction, which in a good strategy, you're going to have conviction of like, no, this is how we do things for this person. And that's like what Seth Godin says, is that people like us do things like this, right? And that becomes not only your internal kind of narrative for your brand of how you do things, your conviction, your identity, but also for your audience who aligns with you, goes, no, this is who we are. This is who I am as a buyer. Yeah. These are the brands I support, and I align with this brand. And that just, again, compounds because that trust is there, that kinship. And so to be distinct, to be different in the market, it's not just being consistent and doing the same thing and running the same thing over and over and over. It's about having that conviction where it's razor sharp and it cuts through the market. Like, to me, it's like, again, we've made so many connections to relationships, to being a human and standing out, and how that then crosses over to like this brand land of, okay, how do you actually form a brand? How do you actually do these things? And it's like, you can't actually like talk about these things without thinking some of these huge brands that have actually changed the world. Everything from Apple, Disney, Costco, any of these huge brands. And
if you've lived in this past, you know the brands that
the ones that we
about.
talk about.
But there's a reason for that.
And it is like they're founder led. They have strong conviction about them.
Yeah.
Where these founders were almost maniacs. Like you hear about some of the Steve Jobs stories. Although he's idolized, I guess he was a real jerk, and he just had these incredibly high standards where, everything from Thomas Edison to James Dyson to Steve Jobs, they were maniacs and almost they were passionate, but almost just like neurotic about either quality or details or something about it. And that conviction then kind of became part of the DNA in the brand itself. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's interesting to kind of follow these through lines of these companies and going, okay, well, how does that breed over into the brand? And then what people like about that, and then what they come to expect about it, what they trust about it, and just all those things.
Yeah. And you talked about alignment, you talked about kinship, and that whole idea. And again, that's a relational aspect of brand, is that, consumers, you think about the brands that you really like, whether it's a clothing label, whether it is the brand of car, if you keep getting the same make of car because you just like that, I'm a Kia person, or I only buy Ford, or whatever it is, right? The brands that you embrace, that they are an extension of you. It is alignment. Does this business, does this good, this product, this service, whatever it is I'm engaged with and buying, right? Is that a part of me?
Even when you see that alignment broken, where growth, the momentum of a brand or a business, it stalls when the identity lags the ambition, where it creates this like this broken kind of bridge where, again, for example, we saw Jaguar do this, we saw Cracker Barrel do this, where there's this broken alignment where the brand made a move, where they did something, where then it kind of contorted the perception, and then that broke that trust. And now Cracker Barrel just reported they had a huge slump in sales, and it was probably due to what they did on the brand side, where they threw out all of their heritage as a brand, who they sold to, and then they tried to become like this, like, I don't know, generic kind of like Applebee's-esque of a brand, and they lost all that brand value that they had. And again, Jaguar is going to come out with their new model soon. I think next year they're rolling those out, but even that will be interesting to see how it's received by the market, because they kind of threw out a lot of the brand heritage and the value that they had as a brand, and
the perception they radically changed the perception,
which is like, okay, if you're forcing that onto an audience, yeah, sure, there's benefits to it. You can do that where you're this is no longer us, this is who we are now, but not to say that there's going to be whiplash or some kind of fallout from that, because that's a huge
but that's where
thing to do. And
that's where strategy comes in, right? I mean, that's where a brand is saying, okay, you know what, we are going to be, this is not the customer base we've grown, but this necessarily isn't the customer base we ideally want, so we need to pivot, and this is the people we're going after. And so in their rebrand or whatever they're going through, it's strategic. It's not just rebrand to rebrand because I'm bored, rebrand because, it's been a couple years, time for something fresh, like a fresh coat of paint. There needs to be strategy. There needs to be intentionality. There needs to be a reason why you're making every little pivot, because in the end, a rebrand isn't a cosmetic thing, right? It's not just something new. It's repositioning how the brand is viewed upon, because something about the brand has shifted.
The pattern that I've seen is that whether these huge brands like Jaguar or Cracker Barrel or smaller brands, where once the business is silently kind of eroding, right, and then they go, okay, we need to do a rebrand. That rebrand is usually done out of a cosmetic, this topical kind of going, we need to do this and now that'll fix all of our problems. They're looking at it as like a Band-Aid solution, or this quick, easy like injection of revenue. It's like this isn't a Black Friday sale. Like you're doing a rebrand. This needs to be, like we talked about before, is like the caterpillar to the butterfly, where this is the best rebrands are the ones that look at it that way, where even as a caterpillar, when you're crawling on the ground, you're still growing and changing and evolving. And then you get to this point of reveal of, oh, this is who we are. And Honda is doing that right now. We've seen Volvo do that. We've seen a lot of brands where they've done things, and it's slowly over time, they've strategically made these steps. And then it does lead to, yes, there's a reveal essentially, but it's always calculated. And those are like the healthier rebrands versus these ones that are, okay, the business is starting to slow when you do these, let's do a rebrand, and yeah, maybe I'll do it. We shake it up and we'll get to a new audience and all these things. And it's like, okay, that's not, that again goes back to, that feels reactionary. That feels like you're freaking out and you're doing something, or you got a new CEO or someone who's now trying to, I don't know, throw out a lifeline or something.
Yeah. I'm always noticing whether it's Triscuits or something or whatever, that there's always like subtle changes in the packaging, food packaging, for no apparent reason. That's why for me, one of the most identifiable chip bags, that if I'm walking down Albertsons and I'm glancing down the chip aisle and I'm seeing all these tons of packaging, right? Yes, nacho Doritos is kind of, but it's changed over the years. But when I see the Doritos taco flavored bag of taco flavored chips, they are in a retro bag that they were back in the 70s. That bag is not, and there is something so familiar about that food packaging because it hasn't changed. It looks just like it did back when I would eat those in the 70s is in grade school.
And the best example of that is the Campbell's soup. Is that the Campbell's soup?
Yeah, there you go.
Red, white, and then this gold medallion in the center, which a lot of people don't know is that gold medallion was like from like the World's Fair super long time ago, and it had to do with quality, and they won it one year or something like that. So they had that gold medallion, and then they've kept it on there. But you close your eyes and you can see it where you have red, white, and then that gold circle in the middle. And
that's a great example of longevity, where longevity pays off because it's so recognizable.
And again, now it's so recognizable, just like I could tell AI to go, hey, generate me a ketchup bottle. And that ketchup bottle is going to look a lot like Heinz. And then you go, okay, now generate me a can of soup. And that can of soup is
chicken noodle soup.
Yeah, it's going to look a lot like a Campbell's soup because that has become the standard of kind of the aggregate of our world. Yeah. So it's really interesting of this kind of balance of all these episodes that we've talked about and kind of seeing these patterns come up just based off observations of just opening our eyes and from our point of view as kind of brand.
I would like to think that we kind of know what we're doing. We're not enthusiasts, that we do this for a living. You know, we build careers on this. So yes, no, we know what we're talking about.
And there's so much more. I'm excited for kind of these next couple episodes of these new points we can touch on. I've been watching, there's been interesting campaigns rolling out, everything from like Volvo to, I don't know. I feel like Celsius has been doing interesting things. I feel like Liquid Death still continues to do things. And so you're seeing it across the market where these brands, I think in the last 5-7 years, you've seen a huge challenging of everything from productized brands advertising a certain way and approaching their brand to then like services getting inspiration from that and treating services intangible things and marketing them similarly. And now you have this kind of just like we talked about before, the whole experiences, those are now like showing their head and getting more into all these different markets. So you have, I think, brand as a general pot of kind of what it is of this like gray area is at a really interesting point right now. And you have technology really pushing things. You have art being challenged. You have so many different things that are just going to, I think, make things level up. But that's just, again, from what I'm reading, from what I'm watching, from what I'm observing, I think we're at a very interesting kind of inflection point when it comes to marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening and
thanks for
being
just
along
listening.
for the ride.
Yeah, dang. For all of you guys that have been along with us from the beginning, we thank you. For the people that have just discovered us. You have a wealth of hopefully good episodes to listen to, and so we thank you again for just
and I want to do a shout out to our weekend warriors who seems to be a group of people because our episodes always come out on Tuesday morning, and always on the weekends we'll get this spike of listenership where I don't know if people saving them or people are just listening on the weekends when they're doing yard work or whatever the heck they're doing. It's really cool that people will save and sip on Brandy over the weekend and enjoy that and take it in, especially when they're resting or relaxing or whatever it is. But, you can help us out by sharing whatever episode's your favorite with maybe a colleague or someone you
just
know.
pass
who has a
along.
business.
Again, we just like to educate the world in brand. We want to see that we want to shape a better world with better brand, and that starts by just educating the masses of people out there that are in charge of their own brand.
Definitely. Well, until next time.
Cheers,
Cheers.
guys.